independence and all private interest indicators, this is just driven by, I think, multicollinearity. Because some of the private interest indicators, for example, the last one, was highly significant and has now a p-value of 0.17. So I would like to see the variation inflation factors on those because they must be huge, I think.
Well, yeah, you're going to get larger ones once you put interactions in there. I mean, I guess it's a question of to what extent. Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
when you
interpret the interactions and say, well, here we predicted this and that, but it's not significant. Well, this is probably just because there is multiple.
Sure. Yeah. I was going to say because the collinearity doesn't bias the coefficients. It just
exactly
noise. And,
exactly.
I see where you're coming from. Yeah. Okay. Do I have to wrap up?
No.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay. Okay, so here were the two-stage models we ran. Okay, essentially in the first stage, predicting donations. So we had two different first stage regressions for the potentially endogenous variables, which were the donations within the managers or outside directors, professional networks. And so what we basically put in was the number of listed directorships or unlisted directorships as predictors of, just essentially, if you have more listed directorships, by and large, you're going to have a greater chance that one of those firms makes a donation. Okay, and so at least some of those candidate instrumental variables are significant in themselves, and the collective R squared is increasing R squared in adding the instruments is significant. When we then use the predicted values from the first stage regressions in the second stage, we still get significant results. Now, of course, with all two-stage approaches, that's contingent on the relevance of the instruments and their exogeneity, and sometimes you can make things worse by getting it wrong. It still works if we restrict the instruments just to the ones that are most relevant. We actually get stronger results. The reason for having the more instruments in there is that at least it allows you to estimate the Sargem test to actually have some further basis for an assertion that these are actually instruments, that they're potentially exogenous to the second stage. So basically what I'm saying is we've stuffed around with, it's not a technical term, we've played around with the instruments that we've used. We from memory, we get basically very similar results in the second stage. The endogeneity is possibly working against our result in some cases, I suspect. Again, it is what it is. There are limitations to all two stages approaches, and you do make some assumptions along the way about the candidate variables. Millie, can you take out the animations? There is some subsample analysis. I don't know why the 2000 to 2006 period was selected. I've asked Louise, and she can't remember. But the reason for the other definition of subsamples is because there were changes to the regulation as to what the minimum donation was that had to be disclosed, and that happens in the middle of our sample. So we just wanted to check that that wasn't playing silly buggers with stuff. Basically, our results are pretty consistent across different subsamples. What I've also done, as I say, and haven't reported because we only did it last week, I just got Louise to add up the total donations and the totals or averages of whatever it was across the period and run a single cross-section, and we get similar results. Some of them are actually stronger, but I haven't really thought about how I want to interpret that after having asked her to do it. As I said before, we've also flagged all the right-hand side variables, which is what we should have done in the reported model. And they're actually slightly stronger, but not statistically so. I guess across them. Here are the party-specific regressions. So this is what was in the main model down here. Hold on. Down in column 1, we've got the dependent variable from our main tests. And then we split it into donations to the Coalition and to the Labor Party. In most cases, the results are similar, but I take on board Philip's suggestion before in terms of looking at where donations went, and particularly within managed networks. So we get similar-ish results there. What have we got? Did that move? No? Okay. Oh, this statement too, you did, yeah. Okay, we've aggregated donations to the state and the territory and federal branches of the political parties. Well, I don't know why we're only looking at the corporate interest indicators there, but they came out, maybe the other ones didn't change. But yeah, we got basically similar results if we added the state-based donations as well. Okay, summary of results, and again, maybe I've been too strong in the way I phrase some of these things. Both corporate and private interests appear to be related to corporate political donations. Specifically, the level of donations is positively associated with corporations' exposure to parliamentary decision-making, the incidence of donations in managers' and directors' professional networks, and the extent of managers' and directors' participation on non-profit boards. Find some evidence that blockholder monitoring reduces the extent to which executive directors' participation on non-profits influences the corporation's donations. And we find that board independence and directors' or managers' shareholdings do not reduce the impact of managerial private interests as far as we can measure them. And in some cases, those shareholdings appear to increase the impact of directors' private interests on donations, if it is indeed causal. Just some limitations. There's lots of them. I've been through it. Yeah, this is the first cut from etc. Yeah, the data and our proxies are, are a bit noisy. It's not a good excuse to say it's better than what's been done in the past, but I'll say it just once at least. We're trying to build on a pretty rough base. I don't know to what extent, even at the end of the day, if we get this to a tighter measurement model and a more convincing one, I guess the next question still comes down to the so what, and I guess part of that is depending on how we see this as being focused at a governance type journal, or are we really trying to actually explain corporate political activity more broadly, and how we can actually argue that and bring any evidence to bear on that. I haven't actually had time to think about that because I've been swanning around London doing some archival research for a few months on the history of mergers and acquisitions in the brewing industry 120 years ago. So my brain's in a slightly different place. So I've got to get my thinking back on. But yeah, look, I'd really like to take any comments or suggestions, criticisms, things that really stand out as annoying you. Because if they're going to annoy you, they're going to annoy the next person we send this to. So if there are any other comments, I'd really appreciate it.
Just thinking that, not that you can capture it, but it's what's going to happen next that might dictate why you're going to make a donation now. So in 5 years, in 5 years' time, you're going to be ambassador to Ireland, so you donate money now. Yeah, and you're going to be appointed to, especially if you're in Canberra, you're going to be appointed to various quangos, and the payoffs come if there was a, getting back to your buying influence. If you're purchasing something, it could be you won't capture the payoff because the payoff comes 5 or 10 years down the track. That's your point. And so if you're purchasing, what about people recognition for services to industry in the honours list? Yeah, that's what you're purchasing, isn't it? You're purchasing to put your name forward to get your Order of Australia medal.
That's collectible, and we've got a couple of students looking at the personalisation of management and stuff.
Excuse me, that's one way of getting it, Philip.
On that note, can you please thank me?
Oh, damn it. I was ready for a bloodbath. That first draft, I was like, yeah, this is going to be awesome. Yeah. But how's all the academics? As soon as the presentation stops, they just fly out the door.
That is good. Yeah.